All right, so this is kind of that awkward moment where I don't really know if we're live, so I'm just going to start talking and maybe cut off. I'm not really sure, but let me just give it a couple of seconds here, and it says we're live, but you never know. Friends, it's Mike here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for showing up. Today we're going to talk about a new study, and you know what? I'll just throw that study on here while we're waiting for a few of our friends to get on. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Hopefully the sound is good. If it is, you can hit that like button. And if you're rewatching the replay, I do follow your comments as well, but we have quite a few live folks with us when we do these. And here's kind of how this stuff goes. When I'm doing research for videos like this or various social media sites or our Patreon members and so forth, and I come across a study that I think is particularly relevant to your life, I like to just dive into the details so that you understand some of the research. You know, this is the downside about science is, you know, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, you know, Washington Post, LA Times, all that, they don't really cover some of the information that you sometimes want to know. And that's why we have this channel. So if you like that idea, you can hit that like button. If you're not yet subscribed, please do so you get updated when we launch new videos. Be sure to hit that little bell notification so that you get pinged when we do live videos. So let's dive into the study. And I just want to provide a few clarifications, just an understanding about why we're having this conversation. You know, a lot of you message in and say that you've been doing intermittent fasting or keto, you've been doing exercise, and your results plateaued. And so I share these research studies with you because I think they're important that you understand that perhaps if you're trying to split hairs, or perhaps if your weight loss progress and your fat loss progress has slowed or stopped, there's other things that you can do. Now, what we're going to talk about today is fasted versus fed exercise. And so this was a controlled study by folks in Manchester, I think, University of Manchester in the UK. I believe there was close to 20 subjects. Again, I didn't read every little single paragraph of the study, but I did look at the materials and methods and the outcomes and make sure that there was statistical significance. And what I think you'll find pretty interesting, if you just kind of look below, I put the screenshot right there of... you know what? That's not what I wanted to put. I wanted to put this one right here. All right, so let's look at this one. All right, so sometimes when I do these lives, I'm making the content up as we go. So if I mess up, you see it live. So check this out. Here's what's really interesting. In both the Fed AM cardio and the Fed PM cardio group. And so what this was at least 6 hours away from food. And what these individuals did is a 45-minute kind of a steady state aerobic session, right? So this is like going for a brisk walk. This is like doing a group exercise class, something along those lines. And the scientist observed substrate oxidation. And if you look at the graph, how am I going to do this? Like that. Okay. If you look at this one right here, so this is fat oxidation in grams per minute. So how scientists look at fat oxidation is actually the glycerol turnover. Glycerol is the triglyceride. When you hear about stored fat or triglyceride, glycerol is the stored fat backbone in fatty acids. And so this is how scientists look at fat oxidation. And what they found was that glycerol turnover was almost double. I'm going to pause and just say that one more time. Okay. Glycerol turnover or fat oxidation was almost double in the fasted AM and PM group compared to the fed AM and PM group. And so these scientists wanted to figure out, is there a diurnal difference? Meaning, is there a difference in fat oxidation in the morning versus night? Is there a difference in gastric emptying when individuals, do cardio in the morning versus at night versus fed or fasted? So they were trying to look at a few different variables. Also, they looked at carbohydrate oxidation. And so this is what you see kind of inverted in the fed state. So we just reviewed the fasted state, what happens to fatty acid oxidation, fat oxidation. In the fed state, what they found is carbohydrate oxidation is higher. Again, in the fed state, carbohydrate oxidation is higher both in the morning or in the evening, right? So if you were to do cardio after breakfast, your body would preferentially probably oxidize more carbohydrates. But if you were to do, say, cardiovascular or exercise in the morning before breakfast, your body would preferentially oxidize more fats for fuel. Almost twice as much fat over the course of the exercise period compared to if you were fed, okay? Now let's just pause here. And this is where context comes in. Many of you do CrossFit. I'm biased. I like weightlifting. I'm actually having my green tea right here because after this live, I'm going to go lift weights. It's a little hot. Just a small side note, I'm working on an intra-workout supplement here that's going to be really, really cool. So through Myoscience Nutrition. So I'm going to test this out today. We'll get samples out to those of you that are interested. If you are, leave a comment. And we've reached out to some of our top Myoscience customers, and we're working on a bunch of new formulas to help you optimize your body through nutrition. So anyway, excited to hit legs today. If you exercise today, I would love to know what you did for your exercise and whether or not it was fasted or not. So going back to the study, the take home for a lot of people that's of interest is, when you do fasted aerobics, you burn more fat, right? If you do it in a fed state, you burn more carbohydrates. Now, here's where I was going with this. Is that bad or good, right? Is burning fat always good? And the reason why I'm bringing that up is, for example, later today when I squat and deadlift, hip hinge, do barbell, hip thrusts, do I want to be burning fat for that exercise? Well, maybe, but I'm really, trying to create, hypertrophy and trying to create metabolic stress and trying to, challenge my muscle tissue. So while fat oxidation is certainly favorable in the context of fat loss, right? If that's a primary goal, if you're trying to undergo hypertrophy, does it really matter, the substrate oxidation? And so I wanted to throw that out there because some of you train intensely. Some of you are personal trainers and health professionals, and you've been exercising for a while. And, so there comes the idea of like, should I always exercise fasted? And I like to present this caveat for those of you that train intensely. Sometimes when you train fasted, I know for myself, I don't have the best workout. Now, that's because I've been working out for 20 years, right? And that's just how it is. I'm not as strong as I would be if I had a little bit of food beforehand, okay? Now, again, I'm not trying to lose body fat. I'm actually trying to put on muscle, put on size. So everyone's so different. So I just want you to think about this, when you go into this. As we look at the study and as the title of this video suggests, we're only promoting fat loss. Fat loss is just one side of the equation. A lot of you have achieved the body composition that you want and you want to have a really good workout. And so this is the caveat here, is if performing in the gym and having a really good workout and having a personal record when it comes to benching, squatting, doing rows, deadlifts, things like that, perhaps having a little bit of food, intra-workout or pre-workout nutrition could be helpful. But again, if fat loss is your primary goal, blood sugar balance is your primary goal, then perhaps fed cardio. It's splitting hairs here, but the studies are hinting at this, and this is the second video that we've done on this topic in the last 6-7 months. The studies are hinting that we may get a little bit more mileage through fasted exercise. Okay, but that was not the only thing that these scientists looked at. What they also looked at was blood sugar regulation and area under the curve of glucose in the individuals where they did fasted AM cardio versus fasted PM cardio, or fed AM cardio or fed PM cardio. Here's the thing about this is they did see some changes, but it was bouncing all over the place, particularly in the evening if you look here. And so I don't want to necessarily scare anyone, but you need to understand that our blood sugar sensitivity, our insulin sensitivity tends to diminish as the day goes on. So the evening time is probably a good time to maybe take things like berberine hydrochloride and other blood sugar health support formulas, taurine, magnesium, things along these lines. Myo-inositol is another B vitamin that has been shown to have supportive effects for blood sugar health. So I want to keep you in mind that blood sugar changes and insulin sensitivity changes throughout the day. There's a circadian rhythm element to our metabolism. And so I want you to understand that. But here's what's really interesting that a lot of you may, and I'll clear this layer because I don't think we need it. Actually, I'll just leave the study here just so you can see it. If you want to Google it, I forgot to list it in the YouTube description below, which I will go back and do after we end this. But the thing that I wanted to kind of illustrate to you was gastric emptying. So this is important for blood sugar regulation. So if we think about, let's just say we eat 2 slices of Wonder Dough bread, right? We just Wonder Bread, whatever. It's not Wonder Dough. It's just Wonder Bread, right? I don't know. I haven't bought this stuff or seen it in years. Let's say we eat 2 slices of white bread. the slower that we can empty that white bread, the slower that our glucose levels will climb, the less post-meal insulin will have to be released. So that's considered favorable. And this is why advocates, low-carb dieters, and for many years, the Institute for Functional Medicine taught me and other practitioners and physicians and so forth is fiber is healthy for blood sugar regulation, because what fiber does is it slows gastric emptying, and therefore it has an effect on reducing post-meal insulin levels, okay? So what's interesting is these researchers wanted to see if fed cardio or fasted cardio affected gastric emptying, which I think is particularly interesting. And what they found is that actually evening, or they call PM, fasted cardio, so doing cardio before dinner, hypothetically, right? Or that's just an example. Guess what? It slowed gastric emptying. So keep that in mind. So again, they showed that if you do fasted morning cardio, you oxidize the most fat, probably around 2 times more fat compared to fasted AM cardio or fasted PM cardio. You oxidize more fat in the fasted state compared to fed cardio, okay? But for those of you trying to control your blood sugar, this is the take home that I want you to understand. These scientists found for the first time, to my knowledge, that fasted evening cardio before dinner slowed gastric emptying, which over time would have a more favorable effect on blood sugar and insulin regulation. Does that make sense? So here's the practical take-home tip and who this might benefit the most. Some people say, I've been doing keto, I've been doing fasting, I'm doing these things, but I wake up with a high fasting glucose. What do I do? Okay, the scientist hinted at a possible remedy, natural remedy, or indoor solution to help mitigate that. And that might mean doing fasted cardio or doing cardio before dinner, because that can slow gastric emptying. That will help to blunt and mitigate the post-meal glucose response, which would then help to reduce how much insulin is being released from the pancreas. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to help you understand here the interpretation and the practical takeaways from this recent study. And again, it's not that fasted exercise is necessarily superior to fed exercise. It really depends on the goals. So if you're one that struggles with fasted morning glucose rises and you're wondering, gosh, why am I waking up with a glucose of 110 or 105 or 95? Of course, compressing your feeding window during more fasts can help with that. But perhaps based upon the results of this recent study, guess what? Maybe if you if you do fasted exercise before you eat your last meal, you might be able to slow that gastric emptying, which would then help to blunt the rise in post-meal glucose, help to decrease how much insulin is being needed to be released. All right. So that's pretty much it for this live session. Of course, I'm going to take some of your questions first and just let you know, after I clear this layer here, let you guys know that these live episodes are brought to you by our very own Myoscience Nutrition, a company I founded to help people like you balance their blood sugar, improve their blood sugar health, foster deep restorative sleep, and perform better in the gym. So if you want to use a promo code MCT at checkout, all of our ketone products, our exogenous ketones paired with MCT powder and our MCT stick packs to go, you can buy one, get one free over at myoscience.com. That's myoscience.com. All right. I know you have some questions. Let me see here. What sort of questions we got? When I do these lives in the afternoon, it's super bright here. As you can tell, the sun is coming through our studio. I'm working on the studio, and it's going to help with that. So Marker 113 says, nice books. Am I in focus? Have I been in focus this time, guys? Because, sometimes when I do these lives, I'm out of focus, which is kind of annoying. Greg says, what's up, Greg? What's happening? Hello from Kentucky. What's up here? Dank 102874 from Kentucky. Hello from Wales. Spive21, you are here. What's happening, Spive? We got Jim D in the house. Ada, hello from Minneapolis. We got Liliana from Miami. We got John from Bradenton, Florida. I haven't heard of Bradenton. We got Pamela here from Orlando. We got Rodrigo Diaz from Chicago. I used to work Chicago. That used to be my territory. I love Chicago. especially in the summertime, this time of year, man. Chicago, that riverfront, River North, Lakeview. I mean, I just love Chicago. Rodrigo says he's not a big fan of CrossFit. Yeah, it really depends. Different strokes for different folks. If CrossFit works for you, do it. If not, no big deal. So Camila says it's rest and recovery day for her today, which is good. Rodrigo says he did boxing, heavy bag, battle ropes, and all that. Amazing. And he did it fasted, which is great. Sergio from Oxnard, California, did a fasted full body resistance training, 6 to 7 reps. Awesome. I'm going to have some green tea. I normally don't have tea this late in the day, but I didn't steep it for very long. Here's another little tip, friends. Tea, I like green tea. I'm biased, of course. I'm a polyphenol guy, so it's hard for me to like totally go 100% carnivore because I love these polyphenol compounds from plants, which Paul-Saladino, it says are not as healthy, but I like them. I've been drinking them for a while. Anyway, caffeine, which can be found in obviously coffee, you can take supplemental caffeine, USP caffeine. I like to take it in a green tea before I work out, especially if it's in the afternoon. So I generally don't do coffee after 11 a.m. because the half-life of caffeine, I believe, is 6 hours. And so it could be 6, 8 hours. It could be off on that. I'm not a caffeine expert, but it can interfere with your sleep. So if you're going to do any little pre-workout in the afternoon, do some green tea. And we do, get some good benefits there. So caffeine, what it helps to do, it helps to blunt the perceived exertion of exercise. So if you're doing exercise, it's going to feel as though it's not as challenging, it's not as hard if you take caffeine beforehand. Caffeine also has an effect of sparing the loss of lean muscle mass, which is awesome. Caffeine also helps to enhance lipolysis, or the splitting of fat when you're exercising. So anyway, that's why I drink a little green tea. I'm going to get to Stefan's question here in a minute. Stefan says, I did 68 minutes of weightlifting this afternoon with only black coffee, green tea, and citrulline in my system. Stefan, amazing. Good for you. I like that. Spot21 is doing a bunch of stuff, some comments and so forth, filling in there and talking to Ernesto, which is great. Liliana says, I'm doing doing fasting, but I do PM cardio. Interesting. After my food, last meal is around 3 p.m. First one is at 7 a.m. So let me just exemplify what Liliana is doing. And it has to do with something that we've talked about in other videos about the thermic effect of food and various early time-restricted feeding studies that have been recently published that I think is interesting. And we have talked about this on this channel. But in case you missed those videos and you're still here, let's talk about it. So Liliana is compressing her feeding window earlier. So she's eating at 7 a.m. and her last meal is at 3 p.m. Liliana, good for you. This is called early time-restricted feeding. Okay. It's also called intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting is this big umbrella term that kind of talks about alternate day fasting, the 5-2 diet, time-restricted feeding, early time-restricted feeding. So time-restricted feeding is a subset of intermittent fasting, and Liliana is compressing her calories earlier in the day. There's some benefits to this. Some of the benefits include if you're one of these people that is prone to overeating, like in the evening. Hello, that's me. I'm one of these people that, man, I want to have some cookies, I want to have some crackers, I want to have some chocolate, I want to, eat, drink wine, all that stuff, right? So for me, it's nice to eat earlier in the day because I'm just full. By the time the evening comes, like I'm full. I don't need a bunch of food. I don't need to overeat. I don't need to snack. I'm satiated, right? So this is who can possibly benefit from intermittent fasting and the subset of intermittent fasting, specifically time-restricted feeding, early time-restricted feeding. So eating earlier in the day. The other potential benefit of eating earlier in the day is a so-called thermic effect of food is higher because you expend more energy breaking down the food that you're eating if it's eaten earlier in the day. So you can burn an extra, maybe, I think the study figured out it was like 150 to 200 extra calories per day just by way of the enhanced thermic effect of food by eating earlier. Now, here's who shouldn't eat earlier in the day. If you don't have self-discipline to cut off the feeding window. So let's say you're like Liliana and you're trying to eat earlier in the day. You're like, you know what? I'm going to try this early time-restricted feeding thing. I'm going to cut off my feeding window. It's going to be 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. But then you don't have the discipline to cut it off at 3 p.m. So then you're just opening the window up larger, right? So if you don't have the discipline to stop and cut it off, then you should probably just prolong when you start opening up your window. Meaning, maybe you don't break your fast until 2, 3, 4 p.m. Okay, and you just keep the window 4 to 4 or 2 to 8 or whatever it is for you. Everyone's different. So that's the recommendation that I have about who should fast, or who should embark on early time restricted feeding versus not. Does that help, guys? If you like that little tip, just hit that like button. That just lets me know that we can do more content like this. Let's see, what else? We got Twala Girl says, Erica here from Hawaii. How you doing? I usually do AM fasted resistance training. How long were participants fasted for in the PM? Yeah, great question there. So I believe it was 6 hours. So they had, went from, 6 hours after their last meal and did 45 minutes of cardio. Now, it doesn't mean that 6 hours is the magic number. It can be 4. It just means that, compared to eating something and then going and doing exercise like within 30 minutes, they had gone at least, 4 hours. So just keep that in mind. So if you're one that eats lunch at say noon or 1 and you go to the gym at 4 or 5, you're probably in that window where you might be able to have that slower gastric emptying and then that more favorable post-meal glucose response. Barney is here from San Antonio, Texas. What is up, Barney? I'll be out in the Austin area in September. So Queen Mercy says, any recommendations for diabetics wanting to fast? Just start fasting, Queen Mercy. Start small. It's like a lot of people get benefits from 72 hours of fasting, but if you're diabetic, you don't need to go start doing that right away. I would suggest just start out with a 16-8, right? Know thyself. All right, have backup. If you're on medication specifically, you want to make sure that you want to have a backup glycemic source. If you're going to drop, if you do go hypo, you want to be able to mitigate that. But just start. A lot of us pontificate and guess and are constantly searching for the right thing to do, but we don't act yet. You just got to start. Everyone's got to start. Okay, whether it's I want to put on muscle, what do I do? Just start training. I want to save more money. What do I do? Start saving, right? Stop spending so much. I want to start fasting. What do I do? Just start fasting. Skip breakfast, skip dinner. I would suggest, that question, Queen Mercy, I would say start by skipping dinner. Maybe you have a lunch and then that's it. 1 meal a day, right? Just start with that. So then you're fasting for an extended period of time. You're still getting your nutrition in. You're not doing anything too drastic right out of the gate. Have some contingencies and plans, right? Maybe a backup banana just in case you go hypo. Know thyself, right? I don't know what medications you're on, but your glycemic levels are going to change. Now, here's what's coming up in another video, since you brought it up, is you guys are going to think this is crazy. Insulin resistance happens when we fast. I'm going to say that again. We become insulin resistant when we fast. Now, I know this is kind of like a cognitive dissonance for a lot of people. You're like, whoa. So many people improve insulin sensitivity when they fast. Yeah, well, maybe over the period of time, but while you're fasting, your muscle tissue becomes insulin resistant. We talked about this on many videos, but I want to just drill this down in your head because not too many people are talking about it. What happens, even if we restrict our calories, there's, low calorie people, there's various longevity cliques, around the country and world where people, restrict their calories and are trying to live to 120, whatever, right? But it seems that as long as we're insulin resistant and mTOR is not high, that's called benevolent pseudo-diabetes. Benevolent, meaning helpful, quasi-diabetes. So it's super interesting that it's actually a favorable phenomenon that our muscle becomes insulin resistant. And when we fast, there's an upregulation in these so-called uncoupling proteins within our mitochondria. Uncoupling proteins, we've talked a lot about this with Dr. Ben Bickman and other people on these podcasts. Cold exposure upregulates the function of these so-called uncoupling proteins. And uncoupling proteins, essentially what they do is instead of enabling the mitochondria to convert dietary energy into biochemical energy in the form of ATP, the uncoupling proteins make the mitochondria leak energy in the form of heat. And so they generate heat instead of cellular energy. So it's, in a way, it's burning calories, but not creating energy. So it's a different, you can consider it a fat loss, kind of tool. But it's a way of wasting energy. And it seems that when we fast, our muscle tissue wastes energy, which is crazy. So yeah, I think that's super fascinating. But it's this pivot between insulin sensitivity and low mTOR. Okay, and so when we have actually a reduced insulin sensitivity, a fasting-induced insulin resistance, but as long as mTOR is low, that's favorable. But if we have insulin resistance combined with high mTOR, that's when we get disease and pathophysiologic abnormalities such as diabetes, such as metabolic syndrome, such as obesity-related metabolic inflexibility. So this is content I'm working on a new book, and it's just so fascinating, right? This pivot between mTOR and insulin, and so maybe it's not insulin. Maybe insulin's not the bad guy. It's really chronic overexpression of mTOR. And if you want to learn more about mTOR, autophagy, and mTOR inhibitors and all that, our Autophagy Enhancer Masterclass, we got a new one coming up in September. We'd love to have you as part of it. So what do we got? Hello, Lolly. What's up? How you been? Been a long time. So Queen Mercy, did I help you kind of understand that a little bit? Dance102874 says, what is more beneficial for raising ketones, by lowering protein for health or eating keto carnivore style and dipping in and out of ketosis and converting gluconeogenesis? So first of all, why do you want to raise ketones? Number one. Number two, there's many ways to get into ketosis. We talk about this. Eating a low carb, high fat style diet. The amount of protein has a negligible effect, to be totally honest, on your ketone levels. I mean, outside of, if you're eating 10 pounds of meat per day, then possibly the gluconeogenic increase could, and possibly post-meal insulin effect could affect ketone synthesis. But most people eating a moderate amount of real foods that are low in carbs, high in fat, get into ketosis, no problem. Physical activity, exercise, is the second easy way to get into ketosis and to burn more fat for fuel, as is fasting. So again, 3 ways. We got low carb, high fat diet, we got exercise, we got fasting. So just tinker and test with those 3 different things. And if you're in ketosis, gluconeogenesis is happening. You can't deny it. It's happening, right? I know when keto first started to get popular in 2014, 2015, people would talk about gluconeogenesis as though it's a negative phenomenon. But glucagon, which stimulates ketone synthesis, is also involved in gluconeogenesis. So the same hormones that get you into ketosis promote and stimulate gluconeogenesis. So let's not be scared of glucose, guys and gals, and everyone you listening. Glucose, you need glucose for your retina, you need glucose for your red blood cells. There's other tissues in the body that absolutely require glucose, including some neuronal cells in your brain. So let's not be scared of glucose. So hopefully Dance102784, hopefully that helps you kind of think through this. So those are the 3 different things. So Leon says, hey, Mike, question is the long-term benefits to grass-fed protein, grass-fed whey protein. I know there are favorable omega-3s and so forth and fats. Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of grass-fed. We do sell a grass-fed whey protein through Myoscience. It's a raw material that I've been super excited about since, no kidding, 2010. So I'm glad to partner with this group out of New Zealand. But what I would suggest, if you go into Instagram and look up our other Instagram account, Myoscience, MYOXCIENCE on Instagram. Again, that's Myoscience on Instagram. I shared a recent study that looked at the difference between pasture-raised and conventional animals. And they looked at the different genetic transcripts in the muscle tissue. So it's not, because we didn't have the genetic technology, the proteomic technology, the metabolomic technology to know anything different besides the concentration of omega-3s, right? So that's what's been talked about for many years. Oh, it's grass-fed versus feedlot. It's omega-3s versus, omega-6s. It's a little bit more to that. And the study that I shared on my Myoscience Instagram page dives into that, and I have some commentary and links to that study. So again, just go on to Instagram and check that out, and hopefully that will answer it. And if you want a full in-depth video on those particular studies, because this is actually something that's near and dear to my heart as someone that has backyard animals, pigs, turkeys, chickens. I see a phenotypic difference in them and the microbes that they're exposed to, their living conditions, their stress. And I have this sneaky theory that, and we can't measure it yet, but we're not just absorbing the macronutrients from our food. We're not just absorbing the protein. We're not just absorbing the carbohydrates. We're absorbing bacterial fragments and factors that are affecting genetic expression, epigenetic factors. And so as all of you know, we have our iPhones, we have this, I'm talking to you on a Mac. I have a Canon C100, camera that I'm filming on. So it has fixed hardware, but the software is updatable, right? The software system on your phone, the software system on your computer is updatable. And the software system for our genes is updatable as well. That's called epigenetics. And so our thoughts, our feelings, our stress load, our environmental conditions, our food impact this epigenome. And we've learned from various studies that at least if we ingest plants, the microRNA, which influence the epigenetic expression of humans, is absorbed from plants. My eyes itching all of a sudden. So I think it's super fascinating. So I think and believe, based upon the preliminary data that we have, that how your animals are raised, that if you consume animal products, presumably you do, influences your gene expression. And we may not see the implications of that in terms of a health perspective for many, many years, right? Just like we all know people who smoked for 20, 30 years and didn't get cancer. These nutritional insufficiencies or over excesses and so forth take years to manifest. Okay. Krita says, hey Mike, what's your opinion on hair loss on keto? What seems to be the cause of that? How to fix it? It seems pretty common. Krita, I've noticed thickening of hair. My wife, same thing. Like it could be keto-induced thyroid dysfunction for you. It could be not getting enough iodine. It could be minerals. I'm not sure. Hair loss is like disordered sleep. There's so many different things that can affect sleep. There's 1,000,001 things that can affect hair loss. I have a whole video coming about hair loss and the tools that I use to slow down hair loss at 37 as a man. A lot of my brothers and males in my family are starting to lose their hair. And so I've been able to slow down that loss. And I'm sharing some tools with you guys on that in a video. But so I'm not an expert on every little tool, every little thing, but there are some things. And I would suggest, collagen. So collagen, of course, I'm biased because I sell collagen, but I'll be totally honest. Collagen really helps. Our bioactive collagen peptide formulation that is using enzymatic molecules from a company called Gelita. They're one of the biggest collagen suppliers in the world. They've figured out the exact collagen peptides that specifically affect hair, skin, and joint health. And so they use enzymes to take the main all the collagen peptides and condense them down into more concentrated and tissue-specific collagen peptides that affect type 1 collagen synthesis. So that could be very helpful. Getting a thyroid panel, getting an iron panel. You want to figure out, is it a hormonal issue? Like what's going on with the hair loss? So it's hair loss again. Like people say, I can't sleep. What's wrong? Well, are you on your phone, right? Are you drinking alcohol? Are you eating before bed? Do you have hormone issues? Do you have EMF exposure? Do you have dirty electricity? Do you have a hot room? There's so many things that affect sleep, and there's so many things that affect hair loss. So I can't just tell you, do this or do that. But I will say we hear from so many customers that our collagen does help with that. I personally like to add in zinc. I like to add in bioactive silicon. Silicon is a rate-limiting raw material for collagen biosynthesis, so that could be something that could help there. Also, just circulation. So it sounds funny. Can you guys see I'm kind of like moving my head and so forth? So there's this theory that dysfunctional circulation can affect the follicular health, I should say. So we exercise our muscles, we move our biceps, we do squats, we do, crunches, but what are you doing for your scalp? And so just when you're driving, when you're sitting there on the computer, have a little sticky note to as a reminder to exercise and move your muscles so you get blood to these muscles so that you fuel the hair follicle. So hopefully that helps. With that, James is saying, excellent live stream. James, thanks for being here, buddy. I recognize you. You're here a lot. Are you a pilot? It looks like your picture, you look like a pilot of some sort. Susan says hair loss is a mineral deficiency and you need more iodine. So Susan, there's no absolutes in nutrition, right? Yes, nutritional deficiencies can contribute and cause hair loss, but not all hair loss is due to nutritional deficiencies. In fact, on my Instagram over at metabolic_Mike that I shared yesterday, showed that it overexpression of mTOR contributed to hair follicle degranulation and death and early senescence, cellular senescence, which is a cell cycle arrest in hair. So if you have hair loss, try compressing your feeding window more. Even if you're keto, try eating just 1 or 2 meals a day, perhaps. Now, of course, it could be other issues hormonally, nutritional insufficiencies, as Susan said, but we need to kind of get out of like this binary way of thinking when it comes to nutrition. Nutrition and health is multifactorial. And, hopefully we're doing a good job on this channel of giving you all the different input so that you can affect the variables in your own life. So what else we got? Sean says, hey, Mike, random but important and serious question. What diet and supplements would help androgens, penis growth health for someone going in puberty? Thanks, man. Really appreciate you answering this. So, Sean, I would suggest sleep. Sleep is the most important thing. Getting off tech, getting off devices. I would say you really need to get in bed by 8:30 and get a good night's sleep. I don't know that any supplements can really move the needle. Obviously, you can enhance sleep with really clean organic CBD. We have a MyoRelax and Calm product through Myoscience that's been helpful for sleep. But I would suggest other supplements. You could add in zinc. You might add up to 50 milligrams a day, up to 75 milligrams a day. But you want to watch for copper insufficiencies if you go that high. But sleep, and then adding in that stress, that pressure, that androgen synthesis pressure. A lot of people, you need to hit the gym. You need to do high intensity interval training. You need to get a girlfriend if you don't have one, right? Get some pressure, some demand to stimulate the brain androgen production. I'm leery or cautious about recommending supplements like DHEA, although I take DHEA, but I'm 37. What would taking things do to you at that age? I don't really know. So that's what I would suggest. Obviously stay far, far away from any anabolic steroids. Stay far away from any peptides, including SARMs, selective androgen receptor modulators, because those will shut you down big time. You want to stay away from pre-hormones and all that. So, yeah, hopefully that helps, Sean. But sleep's going to be your best friend. What else we got? Oh, man, the color is like so weird on this live. So friends, someone says Hog Farmer says bacon regrows hair. That's funny. Hog Farmer, what kind of hogs do you have? I have a Juliana and Kuni Kuni. So friends, as always, I really appreciate you tuning in live. Hit that like button if you haven't already. That really helps us. That helps YouTube. That helps other viewers like you that want to see content like this. Again, if you want to support our channel, you can go over to myoscience.com. That's MYOXEIENCE.com. And if you order any of our MCT to go or our ketone formulas, it's buy one, get one free using the promo code MCT at checkout. Again, buy one, get one free on our keto products over at myoscience.com. Please use the promo code MCT at checkout. And that's about it. One more question. So we got Glenn says, any ideas for muscular dystrophy? I'm 50 years old. Glenn, this is not an area that I know much about. I don't know much about muscular dystrophy. So I apologize. I'll try and do some research on it. But from a nutritional standpoint, I don't know. I don't have a lot for you. Let's see here. So Alex says, is keto carnivore diet advisable for chronic gout? Yeah, I would suggest more fasting based. We've had a lot of benefits, supporting the liver and kidney function with gout. You can supplement with coenzyme Q10. Coenzyme Q10 is a supplement that can help with kidney issues, and we know gout is plays a kidney insufficiency plays a big role in gout. But yeah, I would suggest, Alex, more compressing your feeding window would be helpful. Exercise, fasting, really working on getting a good night's sleep and honoring your circadian rhythms can be helpful. So that's what I would suggest. But again, I don't have a lot of clients that have had gout over the years. But super high protein, not that that's bad, not that I'm scared of it for kidney health, but if you already have imbalances, in detoxification and metabolism, excess nitrogen, I don't know how that would affect things. So I would go a little bit more higher fat keto and really work on compressing that feeding window and affecting metabolic flexibility. And also I would suggest sauna. So, friends, very helpful that you were here. Have an awesome evening. If you watch the replay all the way through, I'm grateful for you. And hats off to some exercise. I'm going to go do some legs here. So have a good night, guys and gals. And we will catch you later. Just figuring out how to end this sucker. Live control room. Here we are. Kind of that awkward moment where we're still here, but I'm hitting the stop button. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye-bye.